Hey, everybody, it's Lauren DeLisa Coleman back with another episode, our interview series, the Inside series here at Filmio, and we are still going strong during the Austin Asian American Film Festival. And I have with me now Shanti Thakur, who is the filmmaker behind a wonderful project called Terrible Children. And she's joining us right now, boots on the ground at Austin. Her film screens tonight. Super exciting. Shanti, thanks for taking the time because I know you could be running around doing a million things or, I don't know, getting a massage or whatever, but you are not. You're talking to us. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
My absolute pleasure. So first, please, could you give us a brief synopsis of Terrible Children?
Sure. So Terrible Children, it's a personal documentary about, it really asks the question, the universal question, do you have to betray your family to grow up? And so the story starts where my father gave me a letter that he got from his father, and he only opened it 20 years after his father's death. Now, I always knew there were problems in the family, but that's pretty serious. And then he handed me the letter and he's like, maybe you could do something with this. And so it started this journey of really understanding not just the unlikely marriage between my father, who's Indian, and my mother, who's Danish, which caused the family, the Indian family, to banish my father from the family. But it's really exploring this world of how the backdrop of both my parents. My father lived through partition in India during Muslim Hindu riots, and my mother was in Denmark during the Nazi occupation. So they were both living during very particular times in the world where wars were being fought, brutal wars were being fought on the notion of ethnic purity. And so as the story unravels, it's an hour-long film. I learned things about my father that he only told me when he was 87 years old.
Wow.
And I think part of the process, like I'm the daughter making this film about my parents and my father in particular. And it was like, I think it was sort of this question of like, well, I'm going to tell her now or never. So I began to learn of like these family secrets. Like, when he was a boy, he was in the RSS, which is a right-wing paramilitary group. He was only 10 years old. And when he found out what it was, he quit. So we began to look at how he was feeling like such an outsider in his own family. Mm-hmm. And during this upheaval in India, this was during the 40s, to his journey to when he finally came to the US and later moved to Canada, where he met my mother. So it's really a story about transformation, about betrayal, about love and war and redemption.
I think it's so amazing that you brought this film to the screen, Shanti, because it's, your background or, your ethnic background is not one that is typical, but yet obviously there are many people who have parents from two different kind of cultures, and we just don't really see stories told that much, about them. And I think it is, and I don't know, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about this. But I feel that from all of the wonderful people who I've met from, India in the past, whether they're, first generation here in America and specifically to New York, or, were born here, that family is really, really important in India, like really super important. And I remember my first year roommate in college was born here, but her parents were from India. And, we were always having fun and hanging out. And, many weekends starting Friday night, it was expected that she would go back to the Bronx until Monday morning to just be with the family. And, the rest of us really couldn't understand that. Like, why can't you hang out? And it was, she was always kind of torn, but not really. It was always like defer to family and what your family wants you to do and these types of things. So, I think you bringing this story to light through your family's particular perspective and your father's even more specific is just very key because, yeah, how does one, define oneself even, just on a regular level, but when, you're within like a very rich, long, deep culture where it works out fine if you aren't one who's interested in moving away from home or whatever, doing something unusual. But if you are, like you said, selecting a Danish wife, it can be really, very, very challenging. Or if you're just steering a bit away from the norms. I had the opportunity to do the interview series during the Los Angeles Indian American Film Festival. And there were different films that touched on this as well, but from a different perspective, like rural parts of India where, people were maybe not doing the expected and very much ostracized. So it must have been fascinating to bring this to light. Tell me a little bit about the filmmaking journey from, I guess, both a personal and a professional perspective. I guess maybe starting with, well, how long did it take to be able to craft this?
So this isn't my first documentary. It's my third full-length documentary. And
right.
One thing I did not want the film to be is a series of talking heads, cutting to B-roll with some family photos shown in. I'm just not interested.
Right, the standard.
Yeah, I'm not interested in doing that. Fine for other films, but I did not want to do that. And so artistically, what I wanted to do is tell his story. So it's my voiceover, sharing his thoughts and his emotions and his memories. And so there are no talking heads in the film. But what it is him telling me these stories. And it's using observational footage, archival war footage, archival footage from the 50s of Life magazine, and then creative reenactments. Because what I found was I didn't want it to look like the social realism of a Nat Geo, a National Geographic documentary. And that's great. That's great. I love those. But this wasn't that kind of film. And so when I was working with Benjamin Wolf, the director of photography, we did a lot of camera tests to figure out how are we going to really capture that this is a poetic kind of impressionistic world. And so the facts and the dates, and they're all correct. That's an immovable thing. You can't mess that up. But so the images that we were shooting in India were all of the places that my father had told me. I wrote the story first. That was in the first year, continually rewriting. And then when we went to India, we were shooting the observational footage. And when we got back, so I was editing it and I realized, the first half of the film is very much him feeling like an outsider in this world. And when he comes to the US and his whole world expands in a way that were his greatest dreams, that's when I begin to bring in creative reenactments. And I know reenactments are a dirty word. I know they can be super cheesy in some films, but we really worked with creating, like I said, this impressionistic world where we were beginning to work with selectively blurring and unblurring and kind of fragmented frames, so that you kind of get a sense that everything here is true from his mind, but it's very much an interpretation of how he is remembering. And in fact, some memories, like the memory he told me about, being in the RSS, I had always grown up with him telling me how he joined this group called something like the Boy Scouts, and they woke up to peacocks and all of the deer. And so that was kind of the family mythology of what it's like to be a boy in India. And then, some memories are really suppressed by shame. I mean, he didn't even tell my mom about this, So memory is a slippery thing. And as documentary filmmakers, we're going by what people are telling us.
Right.
And the images, I think, have to sort of express that slipperiness as well, because memories are what kind of define us in a certain way.
What tips might you have, Shanti, for filmmakers who might find themselves in a space that you did, or like you did, where, you don't want to do the norm? How did you get like kind of your creativity going? Are you like a big walks person, or putting on your favorite music, or it's like none of the above? But I'm just really curious, because I think now today more than ever, especially because, Filmio is a Web3 platform, there's so many different things that you can do. People are going to need to be called to express creativity in more innovative ways and want to, but sometimes you can't get there because if you haven't seen what hasn't been created yet, it's very challenging to make it happen. So what did you do, maybe, for those who might be able to pull upon those same methods?
Oh, sure. Well, I think, because this is such an untraditional film, creating in the traditional ways aren't necessarily going to be helpful. And I tried for years to start to, create this film, and I just choked. I'm just like, I don't know how to start this. Like, how do I tell the story? Do I have the right to tell the story? Like all of that self-censoring stuff. And so what I did just for fun, like, I think play is such an important part of making a film. Like, it can't just be like these straight ahead sociological portraits, it has to be, there has to be imagination and joy and beauty in it as well. And so I started taking these workshops in poetry, in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Poets, and at the
No
New York
way.
Poets. Yeah, seriously. So I just met, because all of these things that we talk about around identity and history and memory, I mean, the poetry, are you kidding me? Like, it's like, it is there. Like, there are so many wonderful poets who are doing that. So that really inspired me. And also to hear like the voices of other BIPOC poets, that really informed me. So I was just so ferocious for that. And that was really empowering. So I was writing some poetry, I published some poetry. And then, so it was a very different voices giving me feedback. And so when I wrote the voiceover for this film, it's very like straight ahead talking, like conversational, but it's very sparse. And the story is really also created in a 3-act structure. So experimentation is really great, like to push against the boundaries, to push against this like ceiling here. But you also have to really understand what the rules are. Like, so I could work with a 3-act structure. I'm doing like a first person narration, like experimentation within a certain place. I think also, when I first started to make the film, like I said, I knew I didn't want to do interviews, voice, talking heads. But, you can have a concept, what you think is going to work really well for a full length film. And then you just have to be really honest and you're like, something's missing. And so that was where like halfway through, I'm like, okay, we've got to start creating. I didn't change the story at all, but then I created these reenactments, and that really helped. But again, it was just like, okay, how do I not make this feel like 2 different films? And that's how, when I had to visually like really tie it in, so it feels like I don't know, like a tapestry, like everything feels like it's in the right place.
So obviously it all worked in an amazing way, because now you're at the festival. Can you give us a little bit of the vibe there, like, on the ground? When did you arrive, by the way?
Yesterday.
Okay, so you've had a little bit of time to kind of, get the energy there. What's it like?
It's awesome. First of all, it's my first time in Austin, and this is such a fun city. I love it. And the opening film played last night, and it was amazing. It's the festival is taking place at the Austin Film Society, which is this totally amazing space with like a bar and red carpet, and it's very lively. The screening last night was sold out. It's a very it's a very warm community and it's a very enthusiastic film community here. So I'm really excited to see what happens tonight.
That is just great. And have you had the opportunity to talk with any of the other filmmakers or not? Like, do they have a reception really for you guys, or maybe not, because people come in at different times, during a festival?
Yeah, there was a reception last night, which was really fun.
Oh, good.
And I'm speaking to different filmmakers. Actually, the filmmaker from last night, we met at the Cleveland International Film Festival. So there's nice like kind of crossover, when you're on the circuit. Today, what's really sweet is there's going to be a reception before my film, then my film is going to play, and then afterwards, a South Asian community group here for independent filmmakers and artists, Indie Meme, they've organized drinks and eats at this brewery place in Austin. So it's a busy day and a lot of support, a lot of enthusiasm.
A few moments of your time. So just in that spirit, just to be able to wrap up, why do you think that these types of festivals are important, Shanti? I mean, certainly some make the case of like, why create, festivals around certain demographics that makes for even more separation. Others say that, of course, if you didn't, certain films would never get any recognition. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Wow, I think it's so important because number one, filmmakers who are from the AAPI community, we can see each other's work. There's also, like you were saying, like there are certain themes that really come out a lot, like family, how to conform or not conform and survive, so the themes are like, we get it. Like we're like, oh my gosh, I totally recognize this. Like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. But I think it's also really important for like every community to go to these events because it's like, this is a part of world cinema. This is a part of American cinema. And we're all like learning from each other and speak to each other as filmmakers. Filmmaking is an international language, and that means everybody can speak it and appreciate it and have fun with it.
I think that that's just hitting it right on the mark. So Shanti, how can everybody keep up with either, you, the film? Do you have a site for the film? Are you active across social? What is the story?
Sure. Yeah. You can go to my website, which is my name, shantitechhorror.com.
We love this when people are super organized and they have either a site for the film or their own name. That's like really the top of the top, because I'm just like really a champion for more filmmakers, indie filmmakers, to have a site if you can. So I'm glad that you do. It's your name. Okay. What else?
And my Instagram handle is my name, Shanti Thakur 760. And my name is spelled SHANTITHAKUR 760.
Great.
So I would love to hear from you guys.
Well, Shanti, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, especially on such an action-packed day. I hope that this evening is just incredible for you. And isn't there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Thank you so much for having me. And good luck with this project. I can't wait to be more involved and learn more about it.
Well, my absolute pleasure. And you guys, I hope that you have enjoyed watching this. We're just learning like so much here at the Inside series. And I'm just glad that we can bring it to you. So stay tuned for the very next one. I am Lauren DeLisa Coleman, again, for the Inside series right here at Filmio. Thanks for watching.